Week 2 of No Not Rimo. I'm Annie Cosby. I'm the marketing manager here at Freewrite, and I'm going to be your guide for the sprints today. As you know, we have a very special guest who is going to join us to write today. But first, we're going to give people a few minutes to join, and I'll go over a few reminders. While I do that, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. All righty. First, if you're joining us for No Not Rimo, make sure that you're signed up for the leaderboard. One participant of the leaderboard will be chosen at random to win a prize at the end of the month. So make sure your name is on there. You can be in for the prize. And number 2, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to start with a short interview with our special guest, and I'll get to as many submitted questions as I can, but there were a lot, so bear with me. And then we'll dive right into 2 10-minute writing sprints. Does that sound good? Without further ado, a little bit of ado, our guest today is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 20 books for children and young adults, a 2024 MacArthur Fellow, the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature for 2020 to 2022, chosen by the Library of Congress. His books have received the Newbery, Prince, and Coretta Scott King honors, and he has appeared on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, The Late Show with Seth Meyers, and many, many more, and now our humble little YouTube channel. So please join me in welcoming Jason Reynolds. Exactly. Hi.
This is a wonderful YouTube channel.
Why, thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
We're learning. All right, Jason, where are you joining us from today?
Home in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Right now, there's some drilling going on outside my window, so forgive me if you guys hear that. But I am in my house in Washington, D.C.
Awesome. We have people chiming in: Texas, Missouri, Maryland, Los Angeles, Boston. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys. I'm not going to waste any time. We had a ton of questions submitted for Jason, so I'm going to jump right into those questions. If you have some, you can drop them in the chat, and then we'll get into some writing sprints. Okay, Jason, we'll give you an easy one to start. Mm-hmm. What first ignited your passion for writing?
I think, for me, the easiest way to answer this question is power, and let me explain what I mean. I think as a kid, I was 10 years old when I found this, or when it found me, studying rap lyrics and realizing that poetry was sort of hidden under my nose for all these years, and that it was different than what I was being taught in school, yet the same, right? It looked the same. The shapes were the same. The rhythm was there, right? Whatever we were being taught, it was all sort of applicable to the work that I was reading in the liner notes of my favorite rappers. And so I decided I was drawn to poetry first. But it wasn't until I heard my poetry aloud at my grandmother's funeral, and then heard the feedback from people who said, hey, man, like whatever that was, I'm 10, by the way. So they're like, whatever that was, it made me feel better, or made me, think about these things, or it helped me mourn and grieve the loss of a loved one. I felt power for the first time as a young person. And when you're young, all you're looking for, all you want is a little bit of power. And once I knew that power was in language, and that I now had language, then I knew that I now had power. And that was all it took.
Wow. Okay, so we're 4 minutes in, and I'm already teary-eyed. Thinking of 10-year-old you, your poetry being read at your grandmother's funeral. That's amazing. On that note, we have some young people tuning in today. Mrs. Weir's classroom is tuning in from Boston. Hey, guys. They want to know what your #1 piece of writing advice is for teens.
That writing is art. Your entire schooling has taught you that writing is science. And what I want to show you is that writing is art, right? This is meant to feel like dance. It's meant to feel like play. That, there are tricky times and hard times in the process of writing, but you can break rules and bend rules and think about it like you would think of any other kind of art, right? There are ways for us to manipulate language that I don't think we always learn in school. But the truth is that the only reason your teachers have ever taught you the rules of writing is so that you understand how to break them, right? If you're reading, let's see, you're in high school, maybe you're reading Toni Morrison, maybe not. But your teachers have spent the last 10 years of your life telling you how to use a comma. And then they put Toni Morrison in your face and you realize that she almost never used a comma because she was an artist. She knows how, but she was an artist. She made choices, right? And so I would just say, make it feel like play. You'll know it's right when it feels like play to you. And that way it won't matter if anybody else likes it because it feels so good to you when you made it, right? It serves you. It's meant to save you, right? And I think that would be the advice that I wish somebody gave me when I was that age.
That's so interesting. We actually had another question. Someone called out that you use both prose and poetry so well together. I mean, interchangeably in your stories.
Yeah.
They said, how do you know when it's the right time for each within a story?
It's just instinct. It's intuition. So much of writing is gut work, Like we read all these people because we're trying to figure out how to find ourselves in it, right? We're looking for who to emulate that feels closest to who we want to be. And then we start to sort of become ourselves in the midst of said emulation, right? So for me, it was, emulating the works of Walter Dean Myers, emulating the works of some of my favorite, like Langston Hughes wrote fiction, right? And so to read some of those, like the simple stories, or to read, Big C or these other books, and you're like, oh, he's still sort of using his poetic devices in the prose. Who's to say that we can't, by the way, right? I get to, Gene Toomer wrote a book called Cain 100 years ago that used poetry and verse and prose in one particular novel. Also, isn't everything a poem anyway? To me, all literature is poetry. It's all the same. It requires the same devices. I get to use alliteration and onomatopoeia and figurative language. I get to sort of play around with enjambment if I feel like it. If I want to break the line, I can. Who says I can't? Right? And I remember when my book started getting translated, the first country to translate my work was Germany. And I remember going to Germany to tour, and they were so funny because they said, Mr. Reynolds, I'm the person who translated your book. And I have to say, it's really hard to translate this in German because you rarely write in complete sentences, right? So much of your prose are fragmented. And I said, yeah. Like, yeah. Because that's
sorry.
And so what, right?
That's amazing.
Do what you want,
You're not gonna know.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay, another teacher asked, my students struggle to generate more details after an idea. Any advice on where to go from that first idea?
Of course, basically here's a very quick masterclass on what happens when you get stuck. In my mind, typically the way it works, if we think about writing the way we think about life, when you get stuck in life, it usually means that you need to add a person to your life or add an interest to your life, right? So whenever my life gets boring, I have to go meet somebody new or I have to learn something new. In your story, it's the same way. If you hit a point where you don't know where to go next in the story, it usually is because your main character isn't interesting enough, right? And so you need to add an idiosyncrasy, add a characteristic, as I say, or you need to add a character, right? Introduce somebody else to the story. And once you introduce another person to the story, they bring their story to the story. And now your plot is opened up and you can get free. Or you do the whole introduce a characteristic, and now your main character, who was once a shy kid in class, now has a special talent for candle making. And suddenly, right, the story opens up, right? This is how, it's life. Like novel writing is literally an imitation of life, so much of it, whether it be the discomfort, the patience it requires, the discipline it requires, word for word, line for line, paragraph for paragraph, page for page. There's no skipping steps. All of this is life stuff, right? Even when it comes down to how one might develop a plot, it's the same way we develop the plots in our own lives.
Dang. That might have just unraveled a plot bunny in my head. Plot not in my head. Yeah, I mean, on that note, a lot of people today tuning in today are doing No Not Rimo, our November writing challenge. So these people are trying to write 50,000 words in 1 month, which more or less, that's a book length work. And we're nearing the middle of the month. So how do you keep momentum up when you're in the muddy middle, they call it, where like nothing's exciting anymore? It feels like you'll never reach the end. You're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I'm actually dealing with this myself. The middle always sags, A couple things. Number one, don't. just skip to the end. And like,
Oh,
like it's okay for you to just jump ahead and go ahead and finish the book and then figure it out. I think sometimes, because the key is always not to lose momentum. Momentum has so much to do with writing and with everything in our lives, for that matter. And what happens is we reach the muddy middle, right? We get there and we're like, oh God, now I have to, and we start circling the barn, right? And suddenly your plot has become trite because because the reader can see the strings now. They can see you trying to eat pages. So why don't you just jump to the part that you know you want to write? Right, get to that back half of the book, or that back third of the book, and dive back in and make sure that you can get that right. And usually what happens is something will illuminate in the midst of writing that, and you'll realize how to create the bridge, right? You'll figure out how to create the connecting points. That's all. Like I really think we get so stuck on linear process, and it's like, you don't have to struggle through the middle right now. You can just go ahead and jump to the end, and then see what happens with the creation process, where maybe there becomes some connecting points simply based on like breadcrumbs that you leave for yourself. That would be my.
yeah. I don't know why that's mind blowing, but it is.
It's such a
I might
simple
do
thing,
that
I
today.
know it's such a simple. We all do it. We're like, oh, it's the middle. I'm like, or we can just jump, right?
Because you're so right. You can tell. You called it eating pages. Like that's what I've been doing the past couple days. Like just trying to get that word count, eating
Just eat
pages.
the page, and your publisher's gonna say all of this is, you can just, we don't need.
We
And
can just
sometimes
delete this.
a lot of times you don't even need so much of it, right? It's like I'm writing a road trip. I'm writing a road trip novel, and I have and I'm writing, and we're driving across. I'm driving across the Midwest, and for those of you who live in the Midwest, you know that the Midwest is beautiful and nothing, right?
I was like, "Where's the butt?"
Like it's a beautiful sort of stretch of land that beside its major cities, there's not much to look at on the drive. Now in the towns, of course, but on the drive, there's just not. I mean, soy, wheat, corn, water towers, and windmills is all you're going to get.
Highway 70, yeah.
Highway 70, which is what I'm writing. I'm writing Highway 70,
Yeah.
right? And so I have to then figure out, well, how do you deal with the muddy middle? How do you deal with Indiana trapped in a car, right? And then I realized, oh, he could just go to sleep, and while his brother drives, maybe I write dream sequences, maybe I don't. And when he wakes up, they've traveled 100 miles. And that's a choice that I get to make. You get to just say, hey, 100 miles have passed since the last we spoke in the car. You don't have to write the 100 miles. The reader will go where you go. And if you tell the reader that time has passed, the reader will assume that nothing has happened during that time. Because in life, a lot of times, nothing is happening. It's okay.
Wow. That was very freeing. Oh. Okay, let's see. I have so many to get through. Let's get back to this. The fear of perfectionism. We had like 5 questions on this. Stated different ways, but this person I think did it really well. They said, the fear of perfectionism can be debilitating. It feels like every word you write has to be perfect, so I just avoid it. Do you ever feel that way? And if so, how do you get over that?
No, I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way because I know every word I write is going to be terrible. You have to give yourself over to writing badly. It'll feel so much better this way, right? The perfecting of a thing, or it's not even perfecting, but the pruning of a thing happens in the edit. In the drafting, make a mess, right? Give yourself over to bad writing. That is what drafting is for. All your heroes wrote terrible first drafts. That's the way they got them done. I just need to get the words on the page. They don't have to be right. They just have to be written. And then I can go back and become the artist that I've always wanted to be. I can go back and start to look at things and say, oh, this requires, I'll take my whittling knife and I say, okay, we're going to carve this down a little bit, right? We're going to add some accents here. We're going to change the language here, right? And I could go through sentence for sentence and exercise my muscle the best I can. But first there has to be something to work with. Right. And this will also keep you from running into writer's block, because usually writer's block comes from the fear of writing badly. It's insecurity. Right. Which is also why it usually comes after a really good day of writing. Right. The subconscious saying, I won't be able to match that day as good as it was yesterday. Right. But if you give yourself over to the truth of it all, which is the 50,000 words you all are writing in No Not Rimo are terrible. That, like, because it's impossible to write a 50,000 word draft in a month and it be great.
It'd be
But the
perfect. Yeah.
but the beauty is you have something now to work with. You can cook the chicken, then you can make the sauce. Right? Right now we're cooking chicken. Right? And you know what cooking chicken requires? Nothing. Putting meat in the pan. We're just trying to get it done. A little salt and pepper, maybe, but it ain't gonna be too fancy. And then we're gonna make some sauce and some garnish and the rest of the meal after the chicken is cooked. Right? That's the way we have to think about it. Perfectionism gets you nowhere. Not to mention, no one will know. Perfectionism only matters if it is perfect to you. Right? If it is perfect to you.
So yeah, so this concept of the messy first draft has existed, the zero draft. It has existed forever, but we struggle with it so much. I'm like, I was an English major, so it's so hard to give up, let go of grammar and what would so-and-so think of this? And is this any good? I mean,
I have a theory on why, though.
Oh, I would love to hear.
Computers.
Okay. You like spell check and
computers have ruined it. Think about this. Think about the steno pad. Right? Think about scribbling a draft. It is almost impossible to write in a steno pad slowly. Right? The way that we move when we're thinking and writing is so much. There's so much fluidity to it. There's so much freedom. If the word is wrong, you scratch it out and keep moving forward. Right? There's a kind of fluidity. Right? It's the same thing, by the way, that this thing offers. Right? This is the reason why I love this machine, for the same reasons, by the way, because it's way too difficult to go backward. Right? You've made it inconvenient to go backward. But the computer, it has become Pavlovian for these fingers to hit the delete button. It's click, 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 click. It's Pavlovian, right? It's like a weird thing that happens. It's impossible to get anything done. It really has affected the way, I believe, the way that like we work and write, and the way that we can see the words on the page. Everything is sort of like stylized. And now we can change the font. It's too much. It's too much. How can I vomit language if I'm busy choosing my font?
I feel like you're calling me out.
If I'm choosing which words to italicize, and I'm doing all these things that we get to stylize in a word processor, right? By the way, any other kind of processor chews things. It devours things, right? Meat processors, food processors, trash processors, right? Like it crushes things, right? And that is what is happening in your word processor. I would advise everyone listening, if you can, to pick up a notebook and a pen and pad, or get you one of these machines, or something else outside of your laptop or your desktop to try to write that way. Go back, like figure out analog methods, and I promise you it will help with the zero draft.
Wow. Like someone said, it's always so great and reassuring to get permission from established authors to write terribly at first. And it does feel like that you have to get permission, right? It's like, thanks for the permission.
No problem.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple other questions on that same vein. As you write, how do you know when a forming phrase is worthy and true enough to support more sentences, paragraphs, and pages? I mean, are you even thinking about it at that point?
No. I mean, look, I think that writing, this is my true theory on this. And I don't know if it's true, but this is the way I personally feel about writing in general, which I hope answers the question. I think so much of this is an inside out journey. The more you know yourself, the better your work will be, which is good because none of us will ever know ourselves fully. Right. And so there's always sort of space to get better and to grow. The reason it matters, though, is because so much of my particular process has to do with it's a feel. Right. Like I know when it sounds good. I read it out loud, and I know because my body responds to it. Right. My editors, by the way, all work the same way. You know what I mean? Like my editor at Simon & Schuster, if the hairs don't stand up and she knows that the work isn't ready yet, and she'll send it back and say something's missing, I'm going to try to pinpoint what it is, but it's not working because I didn't get a physical cue. Like, sure, my mind intellectually is telling me this is a well-written book, but my body isn't responding. And this is art, right? Our bodies respond to art. We cry when we watch movies, right? We feel, we dance when we hear music, right? Bob our heads when we hear the bass line, right? Our bodies respond to art. And for me, it really is that way. Now, I don't think everybody has to be this woo-woo about it. So this might not be your way, right? But for me, I know it's right when I know it's right. And I know that's not helpful, but that is the way it is for me.
Well, that brings up a good point that I think, most, well, not most, but I'll say for myself, I'm constantly thinking of the audience. And it sounds like you're saying, I feel it. I feel it when it's right. I know it when it's, I guess I need to think of my own trust my gut more is where
I'll
what it
tell you this, here's about thinking of the audience, especially if you're writing for adults. The beauty of writing for adults is that you happen to be one. No need to think that hard, right? You're an adult. And so, there's a resonant frequency that exists because you are the thing, right? You are made of the thing that you are writing for. And so at the end of the day, just trust yourself. That's the beauty of art, right? We know for a fact that the thing that we think is singular, a singular experience, turns out millions of people have experienced. So there's no reason for us to second guess anything, no matter how strange or obscure it might sound. When I wrote Ghost, there were people coming to me saying, like, that would never happen in the story. A father would never try to shoot his child. Then I would have to tell them, but that did happen, right? That's something that happened to a friend of mine down the street. And then I had other people say, like, yo, I've experienced sort of like parental violence in this way, but we never talk about it. And everyone's like, it doesn't happen. No, it happens. We just are silent.
We don't talk
It's
about
dramatic, right? It's like people don't tell their business, but don't ever assume that there's a such thing as a secret. Like,
wow. Oh, yeah. Talking to you is mind blowing. So another question, this one broke my heart a little. I don't know if this is a young person or an older writer, but either way, how do you know when you have something worth saying?
oh, this is such a good, how do I know that I have something worth saying? The truth of the matter is that I don't always know that I have something worth saying. I just know that there is something that I want to say, right? Now, whether or not it's worth saying is not my business, right? Whoever asked the question, young person, older young person, you are alive. And therefore, if there is something that you want to say, or that you want to express, you should express it for you. You should express it for you. Like writing saved my personal life. I needed to figure out how to get the inside things outside. Now, whether they were worth saying, they were worth saying to save my life. They were worth saying to keep my head on, to make sure I stayed on the level, to monitor and manage my mental health, right? Those are very real things for a young person dealing with stuff. Writing is the thing that gave me refuge. So in that way, it was worth saying. Now, whether or not it's worth saying for a million people or anything, that's not my business. That has nothing to do with me. I have no control over how people feel about what I have to say. I just know that I have to say it because I have to say it. I have to say it. Does it need to be said? For me, it needs to be said, right? For me, so that I'm on record having said it for me, but not because I think, that is the conundrum of writing, by the way, right? It's like it requires an extraordinary humility and also an extraordinary ego, right? It requires you to know that, like, I am very small, and yet I believe, or at least what's going to happen is something that I believe or think or feel is going to be put into the world. And then I'm supposed to assume that everybody's going to want to read it, or that they're going to need to read it. The truth is, over the course of my career, I've realized that, like, the need part isn't necessarily there. Maybe they'll want to read it, but I'm not sure that everything I write needs to be said or heard. But I know I want to say it, and I need to say it for me. And that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing distinction. I think that something worth saying, it doesn't mean a million people are going to read it. There are other reasons that it's worth saying.
I tell everybody, you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a writer or do you want to be an author? Because they aren't the same. They aren't the same. And then you have to ask yourself, do you want to be an author or do you want to be famous? Because they aren't the same.
Yeah, do you want to have to do events like this?
Right? Like, they aren't the same, right? So there's some real conversations that we have to have. I wanted to be a writer, and I did that, and I am that. And I'll always be that, even when I'm no longer an author. And one day I will no longer be an author, but I will always be a writer.
I don't know that I believe that. But
It's
when
too
you're
lonely, too
100, we're
lonely a
gonna be
life. It's too lonely a life.
yeah.
It's too lonely a life.
That's why
We'll,
we're
we'll see.
attracted to community events like this, I think, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get a little lighter. Where or how do you feel most inspired to write?
Either when I'm traveling or when I'm in my home, one or the other. But the in between, I like right now I'm in my house. My house is basically was designed to be inspiring. So I spend a lot of time in here in all these different spaces. I'm very fortunate for that, right? I have all these sort of spaces and it's all very beautiful and there's art everywhere and there are books everywhere and the imagery and all the things that I need to kind of spark me. Um, the other thing is like there's nothing like being in a foreign place. And by foreign, I just mean anywhere that's not your home. Being in a foreign place by myself with my eyes wide open and my ears wide open. Like take your earpods out. You know what I mean? Like listen. Like write so much of writing is about paying attention. You know what I mean? Like you have to pay attention. And I love like finding a little seat. I was in San Francisco the other day, and I'm walking up one of these massive hills, right? And I'm walking, and I get to some coffee shop at the top of the hill, and I sit on a little bench on the sidewalk, and I have my coffee, and I just sit there. People are walking by, people are talking. Older Japanese couple walks by, and they're having a conversation. There's somebody in the window, sipping matcha, right? It's all very like movie-esque, but for me, I'm sitting there thinking about like, how many of these people work for tech companies? Like my mind is sort of like, right? It's like, how many of these people here are native San Franciscans? Is this the last of the coffee shops in this neighborhood? Like there are lots of self-driving cars driving by. So I'm in this really kind of quaint village like environment. Like it feels like it could be Paris, and then 5 self-driving cars drive by. Right. And it's like, this is interesting, and I think that is the way that I live my life. It's curious. It's outside. When I'm outside, everything is open. And when I'm inside, I think I have curated a space that sort of feeds me without me even having to think too much about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, all right. And last thing before we sprint, what is your favorite thing that you've ever written?
Ooh. Let's see. There is an essay for adults in a book that I do not remember the name. It's in a collection. It was written. It was edited
That's
by.
how much you've written.
I know. Oh, I know. I know. It's but it's all about 2020, and it's called
Mm.
Char, and it was all about what 2020 was like as a black man in a city with people walking by my house in protest for George Floyd, me wanting to join them in that protest, but not be able to because my father was dying. And then also because of resource and privilege, my ability to sort of like buy my first barbecue grill during this time. And like I'm in the back. So imagine the strange sort of like dissonance of a protest happening in your neighborhood. You can't get in the crowd because you can't get sick because it's COVID time and because your father is dying and you have to be able to take care of your father. But because he's dying, you're taking over the role of grill master, and you get your first barbecue grill where you have the money at this time to grill, and right while people are
Mhm.
struggling because we're out of work or we're dealing with COVID. And so it's this weird sort of story about the grayness and the messiness of my particular life during this time as I mourn so many different things and as I feel uncomfortable about like grilling a piece of lobster while people are fighting for my life and my father is fighting for his life, and I can't join them because I have to be there for his life. And I also know that some of them will never get to have lobster because of the loss of jobs in this time. And like how do I reconcile? Right? I love that piece. I think it's some of the best writing I've done. Honest, it's very honest. And so it would be that one, I think.
Awesome. We will find that and send a link out in the when we send the replay out so
The
people can
editor's
check it
first name
out.
is Valerie. The editor's first name is Valerie.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's get to writing. I'm going to go over a few rules for any new people. As you know, we're all about free writing here at Freewrite. That just means letting the words flow in the moment, leave any editing for later, exactly what Jason was talking about. And even if you know these already, I'm going to start with our golden rules of free writing. 1, start writing when the timer starts. I will let you know when. Don't stop until the timer stops. Number 2, don't pay any attention to spelling and grammar. Your fourth grade teacher is not here. Nobody is taking points off because you can't spell. And that might be a lie today because there are some classrooms joining. So your teacher might be there, in which case, I'm sorry, follow their rules, not mine. And number 3, don't go back to reread what you're writing. Let your thoughts flow with no judgment whatsoever. All right. The first sprint is going to be 10 minutes. Then I'll call you all back and we'll take a 5-minute break before the next one. If you haven't already chosen a topic for your sprint today, we do have a prompt. And here it is. You receive a letter informing you that you have just inherited a parrot in a stranger's will. When the parrot arrives, it starts talking and won't stop. What secrets does it reveal? All right, we're going to play a little ambient music. If that's not your jam, feel free to mute us or turn down your volume. I will call us all back when it's time. All righty. Ready, set, go. All right, everybody. That was 10 minutes. Way to go. We're going to take a quick break. So stand up and stretch, do what you need to do to get ready to sprint again. Drop your word count in the chat and tell us what project you're working on today in the chat. Jason, are you able to share what you're working on today?
Yeah, I am. I'm working on I have a middle grade short story that I'm writing, not short story, novel I'm writing called Icky, about a bully. I'm just so curious about like writing a story from the perspective of the bully.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and like what happens to people that makes them that way, to kids that makes them that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's
Awesome. I also, during this break, want to introduce a segment I'm calling Beef with Jason, because you can't open up questions to the public for Jason Reynolds without getting some demanding questions. Number one is, when is brain yoga coming back? Either the cards or the live events.
The cards, so they're coming. It's coming soon. Where I'm basically doing it the right way and changing the gameplay. You'll still have the deck that you can use how you want to use, but I'm creating an actual gameplay with it so that you can like almost like use it as a party game or use it as an educational tool or use it as a creative deck, whatever you want. And I'm working with a gaming company, so it's coming soon.
Okay, awesome. For people who don't know, Jason did these live events. Was it during the pandemic you started them?
Yeah.
Where he would have, there would be like two cards with something on them, like a toaster and a stoplight. And then kids would call in and tell them their new invention that incorporates those two things. And when I tell you, every single time I was like, I got nothing. And then a kid's like, oh,
Right.
it's like, how do we go back to that brain? How do I get that brain back?
That is the goal. You just can't. You know what it is? It's foolishness.
It is.
Yeah, the
Being
stopgap
silly.
is there. You got to remove the stopgap of foolishness. You know what I mean?
How do I do that? And
Oh,
then,
Yukari. Yes, that is the book. Bigger than bravery. That is the book where that essay is in. Bigger.
oh,
Bigger.
awesome. I'll show
Yeah.
this on the street. For those interested, there is the name of the book that we were talking about, the essay. So go check it out.
And it's essay number 1, I believe. I think it's the very first essay.
Awesome. Thanks, Yukari. Second question. There was a little attitude with this one. When is Stunt Boy 3 coming out?
Oh, this is a good question.
This is Ash's son sent this one in.
It's coming soon too. Give me a little bit of time. We're repackaging those books because we realize that as much as we love them, it's a lot of book, and so we're breaking them down into 6 books. So the 2 that exist, we're breaking them down into 6 smaller books that we're going to put out, and then the third book, which will be broken down into smaller books, will start coming out as well. So give me a little bit of time, but it's coming. We're working on it.
Okay, sounds like Ash's son is ready. It wasn't too much book for him.
Right.
Okay, let's get back to it. We have one more 10-minute sprint. I will get us going here in a second. We do have a new prompt. If you're not working on your own stuff and you want a new prompt, here it is. Write a story about the world's worst secret agent. All right, let's get to it. All right, everybody, that is 10 minutes once again. Go ahead and drop in the chat your word count if you'd like. You can stop there. You can keep going, write all day, but we do have to sign off, unfortunately. So please join me in saying thank you, Jason, for taking the time to be here with us today. It's always more fun to write in community, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Good to see everybody. And good luck with your writing.
Yes. Good luck, everybody. We'll talk soon. See ya.
Peace.